All right, everybody, section 1.12, transformations, part one. So I want to review a couple things right at the beginning here that we learned in a previous math course whenever you took Algebra 2. So in Algebra 2, we memorized graphs of different types of functions. So for example, we had a square root graph, which we memorized looked like this function right here. Then we took various functions and we applied transformations to those functions. So if you remember, a negative in front reflected the graph over the x-axis. So that first transformation made the graph look like that. This moved the graph left one space and up three. And so we could just take the graph, and I'm not going to worry about getting everything perfect here, but take the graph, and why is it not? There we go. Left one space, up three spaces. All right, and so this would be our final graph, something like that right there. All right, so that was what we did in previous courses. Now what we're going to do is just talk about for general functions. We're not going to graph like specific ones. We're not going to do the square root graph, cube root graph, any of those in this course. We're just going to talk about in general our four main types of transformations and what they do to a graph. So let's start by talking about the two transformations that are outside of f of x. All right, so we've got a function f of x, and we've got four transformations on that function, a, b, c, and d. And we're going to start by talking about the two that are outside of f of x. So those two transformations are both going to be vertical. So a is a vertical, and we're going to fill in the last part in a second. And then d is also vertical because they're on the outside. And the two that are on the inside of the parentheses, so b and c, those are both horizontal transformations. Horizontal. There we go. Again, so the two on the outside, those are going to be vertical transformations. The two on the inside are going to be horizontal. Then we have two that multiply and two that add. And so the two transformations that multiply, those are going to make the function either bigger or smaller, so we refer to those as dilations. So we have a is a vertical dilation and b is a horizontal dilation. The other two transformations, they are just going to move our graph. So this would move it either left or right, up or down, and so we call those translations. So C is a horizontal translation, and D is a vertical translation. Now we're going to add more onto this in a second, but these are the names of our four types of transformations we're working with right here. So let's talk about what each of these transformations does to a graph. So A is out here. Again, it's going to be affecting the graph vertically because it's on the outside. It will multiply the y values of the function by whatever a is. Okay, so if there's a number in front of the function, it's going to multiply just the y values by a. B is also going to multiply. It's multiplication right here. So B is also going to multiply. But this time it's the x values because it's inside with x. So the two that are inside are going to affect the x. The two that are outside are going to affect the y values. But it's not going to multiply the x values by that value b. It's actually going to be by the reciprocal. So 1 over b. Make that a fraction. All right, so it flips it. It's not just b, it's 1 over b that we multiply by. Now, C, this is going to move the graph either left or right. A plus would move it left. And then a minus is going to move the graph right. And then D just moves the graph up or down. All right, so a plus would move it up. And a minus would move the graph down. Now, I know this is a lot of information, but we're going to work on really over a few days. This is kind of our focus here, is what do each of these things do? So, first example, I've given us a function. This is just some graph that I made up. It's nothing special about it. And I'm just going to talk about a few key points on this graph before we actually plot the transformations over here. So, this graph starts at the coordinate point -1, 0. Then it goes up to 0, 1. Then the graph goes down to 1, 0. And then right 2 and up 1, that point is at 2, 1, right here, 2, 1. Now, there's more points in those 4. I'm just kind of picking the most important ones on the graph. All right, and so what we're going to do is go one at a time with our transformations. So first, the 2 that are on the outside, again, those always change the y values. Anything on the inside of parentheses is going to change the x values. So that 2 is multiplying f of x. So we're going to multiply the y values over here. All right, so the x values are going to stay the same for these 4. But over here, I'm going to go one transformation at a time. We're going to multiply the y values by 2. So that first point, if I multiply the y value by 2, it's still 0. So our first point is actually still going to be at -1, 0 when I do the first transformation only. The next point is going to, if I multiply the y value by 2, now it's the coordinate point 0, 2. So it's up here. Our third point, if I multiply the y value by 2, it's still at 1, 0. And then the fourth point, if I multiply the y value by 2 but keep the x the same, now it's at 2, 2. And so it still has the same general shape, but it was vertically dilated, right? We multiplied the y values by the 2, all right? And also, as we're doing these, we're going to want to go from left to right. So I'm going to do one transformation at a time, starting with this one, then that one, then that one. All right, so that was our first transformation. Our second transformation, I'm going to switch colors here, just because this can get a little confusing, is going to be this +1. So remember, inside the parentheses is opposite direction. So that +1 is going to move everything left 1. So this point moves it left 1, left 1, left 1, and left 1. The graph is not changing size. It's just shifting to the left right here. All right, so that was that +1. It moved everything to the left 1. And the last transformation is -3. Well, that's just going to move the whole graph down 3 spaces. So this point goes down 3 spaces. Down 1, 2, 3, down 3, and down 3. So now our graph looks like that. All right, so that was our first example. And again, this yellow graph is the final one. I just went one transformation at a time. All right, so now we're going to take that same graph, same key coordinate points, and we're going to apply, we've got 2 new transformations here. So there's a negative out front, which you could either memorize, just reflects the graph over the x-axis, or you could view that as a -1 in front, and so we're going to multiply the y coordinates by -1. Well, let's start with these 2. The y coordinates here are 0, so if you multiply 0 by anything, it's not going to change. So those 2 points aren't going to move. But the point up here at 0, 1, if I multiply the y value by -1, now it's down here at 0, -1. And then the point over here at 2, 1, if I multiply the y value by -1, now I'm at +2, -1. So we're just multiplying the y values by -1 in that first step. Now the second step, we have to multiply the x values, but not by 1/2, by the reciprocal. Remember, inside is opposite, so it's going to flip that fraction. So we're going to multiply the x's by the reciprocal, so by 2 in this case. So I'm going to go back over here because I have the points, the original points listed out. The y values are different now, but the x values didn't change. So I'm going to multiply all of the x values by 2. So my new x coordinate is going to be -2. So the point that was there, let me do it in yellow, now it's at -2, 0. The point up here or down here, both of them have an x value of 0. So if I'm doubling that, it's not moving. All right, just the x value that we're doubling, not the y. The point at 1, 0, if I double that, now I'm at 2, 0. And the point that was here, and again, now it's down there on the graph, if I double the x value of 2, now it's an x value of 4, and the y value is still going to be that -1 right there. All right, and so this is the first transformation was a reflection, and now it's a horizontal dilation. It's stretching it horizontally. All right, last one. Same graph, same 4 key points. We're going to apply all of these transformations now. All right. So first step, some people like to split this up as 2 transformations. I do them as 1. I'm going to multiply all the y values by -3. All right, some people reflect it over the x-axis and then they multiply by 3. That works as well. We're going to go from left to right here with these transformations. So I'm going to list out just the y values real quick. So the y values are 0, 1, 0, and 1. So we're going to start by multiplying all those y values by -3. So the 2 that are 0, those are not going to move. So we're going to have one right here, one right there. But a y value of 1 becomes a y value of -3 when I multiply it by -3. So it's right here. And same thing here. A y value of 1 becomes a y value of -3 right there. And so this is our first transformation. I did, again, really 2 transformations in one step here. And I think I put that in the wrong point. I did. I went over too much. So let me erase that 1 point. It was supposed to be at 2, -3. I put it at 3, -3. So like this. All right, that's our first transformation, or 2 right there. Now the next one is the times 2. So again, that's going to multiply x, but always by the reciprocal. So here we're going to multiply x by 1/2. Okay, multiply x by 1/2. That's the same thing as dividing all the x's by 2. All right. So here the x was -1. Now the x is -1/2. The y value doesn't change. It's 0 no matter what. Here the x value was 0. 0 times 1/2 is still 0. It's not moving. The x value was 1. Now the x value is 1/2. The y value stayed the same. And then here the x value was 2. But if I do 2 times 1/2, that is 1. So it's horizontally kind of squished this graph together. It's still a horizontal dilation, but it's like a shrink, like it pushed it together. All right, so that was that 2. Again, multiplied all just the x coordinates, not the y's, by 1/2. Then we're going to move every single point right 1/2. And I can cheat and just kind of drag the graph right 1 space, but I'll do it in a different color. Here, I'll do it in white. So take this green graph, move everything right 1/2 a space. So it was at -1/2. Now it's at 0. 0 to 1/2. Right 1/2 a space. And right 1/2 of a space. And so now our graph is right here. And then lastly, that +1 is going to move that white graph just up 1 space. Just because this already looks kind of chaotic, I'm just going to drag this graph up here 1 space for every point, like that. And so that would be our final graph. So there's a lot of steps here. I know it gets confusing when we're just changing the x's or just changing the y's. But again, we're going to keep working at it, and the more we practice, I think everyone should be able to get this final graph right here. All right. So that's it for this one, guys. Stay flawless.